This is it. The final time I'll be running my 18 Centurions Screaming Ravens list. Beachhead Brawl 2026, the third of my 3 back-to-back 40k tournaments, and the culmination of this very long, very strange trip I've been on for the past year. From signing up for my first 2-day tournament on a whim to playing more Warhammer than I ever thought I'd have the energy for. It's all led to here, a 2-day, 6-game event by the seaside. The sun, the sand, the sea breeze, all things that were not at all present because this was February in England. I've learned a lot over this past year, but what I've really discovered the most is that playing 18 Centurions in a list is not good. I don't know if I'm actually a better player. I like to think that I've improved and understood a little bit more about how to play 40k than I used to, but I can't actually tell because my win rate is basically the exact same as it was when I started. Essentially, I win about 1 in 3 games. That feels about right, but I have no idea if I would still only win 1 in 3 games if I played a list that actually wasn't a complete meme. What isn't a complete meme is keeping my minis safe and secure thanks to the MagCase 2.0 from Templars.com. Sponsor time, baby! What else can I say about the MagCase 2.0? No, really, what else can I say? I genuinely need help here. I've told you time and time again about the strong MDF and adjustable trays keep your minis of any size safe and secure, and I have no idea how many times I've mentioned the power of magnets. They're just good cases, all right? I use mine all the time. You can fit so many goddamn Centurions into this bad boy. You can get up to 35% off right down the spring sale. That's so much percentage. And you get free shipping to all of these places. And most importantly, if you don't buy one, you're as bad as these fucking squares. At least these cases are 3-dimensional, unlike your sorry life without the MagCase 2.0. I don't care if you don't have any minis put in it. That's not a good excuse. Buy one right now. If you don't have one of these fucking cases before I get back from the channel, I'm going to hunt you down and shove magnets right up your ass. Thank you, Table.Stronghold, for sponsoring. Go to table.stronghold.com right now or click the links in the description to get stuff in the MagCase 2.0 MDF terrain. This tournament ended up being kind of perfect in that each game illustrates a unique problem with my list, or me as a player. So let's just stop buggering about and get right into the game recaps. Game 1 was against Graham, who was a super nice guy, and this was his first ever tournament. Graham is bringing a Star Shatter Arsenal Necron list with what he describes as a bunch of his just favourite models that he had lying around. It so happens that his favourite models include the Silent King, Catan, and Technomancer-led Wraithbrick. Okay, to be fair, they are actually all really cool models. I definitely want some of them. And Graham also has some interesting extra things, like a big block of Lich Guard and 2 squads of Immortals. A nice, simple mission to start with, take and hold on the Search and Destroy deployment. Fairly standard deployments for both sides here, except I decided to just start my 6 squad of Centurions in reserves because I usually put them up there anyway, so why do I start them on the board? Makes no goddamn sense. Let's talk about dice. Does luck play a role in a game of 40k? Well, yes, obviously, but there's a lot you can do to mitigate bad luck to ensure that your plans work without being scuppered by dubious rolling. The best part about a dice game is that the dice tells stories, and that variance in dice rolling throughout a game creates epic moments, and also allows you to go for Hail Mary plays if you're desperate. And let me tell you, the dice was certainly telling stories in this one, but the problem isn't so much the dice. The first problem I want to talk about is consistency. Which is partly because of the dice, but anyway, let's look at the Devastating Centurion data card and you'll see what I mean. What really jumps out at you for this unit? No, stop looking at the 4-inch movement. Yes, I know it's not the biggest, but it's how you use it, all right? I use the las cannon and missile combo because it's by far the best loadout, but the big problem is that by using them, you're adding so many extra dice rolls to the damage equation. Sure, you can get them hitting and winning on 2s, both with rerolls, but many tanky targets, especially in Graham's list, have a 4-up invuln, and in some cases a 5-up feel no pain. So as consistent as I can get the actual hits and wounds through, one good dice roll might completely blunt my damage output.
Your chances of winning drastically go down!
And then, even if they do get through, I have to make a dice roll for every single bit of damage. And that's on top of having to roll for the number of shots for the missiles. One of the best ways to mitigate dice luck is to just not roll dice. See Sisters of Battle Miracle dice, the bastards. But my main damage output and the main source of any of my anti-tank has additional reliance on chance to be effective. Compare that to something like a Repulsor Executioner with a minimum of 5 damage, or even something like an Obliterator, which is flat 4 but up to flat 6 in Melter range, or a Locust Heavy Destroyer that is just straight up flat 6. Even with 12 Centurions to help offset the potential variance, relying on D6 plus 1 and D3 damage is not great, especially when I have so little damage from the rest of my army. And that is perfectly illustrated when I fired 11 Centurions at the Silent King, and it still didn't die. Okay, I was a bit cheeky in some places and fired some missiles at a Heavy Destroyer to get rid of it, because they're flat 6 damage, and that's horrible. But when you fire 11 las cannons and 8 D3 missiles as an oath-up Silent King, and it still lives on 2 wounds, you really start to wonder what you did in a past life to deserve such torment. I can't really blame the dice for rolling low. I mean, I could, I guess, but the dice were actually rolling fairly averagely. Their timing, however, was fucking atrocious. Each menhir took at least 4 las cannons. I hit a full health menhir. I roll 1 or 2 for the damage. I roll for 4 damage. Graham spikes with a 6-up field no pain from the nearby spider. A 1 health menhir. Oh, here's 6 or 7 damage. Well, thank you 6 for turning up. Where were you 3 goddamn rolls ago? I pretty much rolled perfectly averagely with my dice. Just in the wrong bloody order. You know what took down the Silent King eventually? Jump back intercessors. Mario over here with his power fist was hero of the day when he uppercutted the Silent King's metal jaw right off his throne like he was Bowser kidnapping Peach. Also, to highlight how insane the damage variance was, I killed more wraiths in melee than I did in shooting. Specifically with my devastated Centurions. The last cannons were either saved or massively low rolled, but when I was doing the melee, the 2 damage straight up was just backhanding them over and over again. That actually was useful as it led to Graham only getting 5 primary points in his round 5 compared to his 15 in round 4. In my round 4, I needed to try and pull something back as I was getting somewhat overwhelmed when Graham had brought the Void Dragon out to play and cleared the center objective. He then tried a bit of a gamble by moving over to try and kill Shan with a long charge, which fortunately for me did not go off. I knew Shan would be dead in turn 5 if I didn't do anything, so I decided to abandon my home objective to make the Void Dragon turn around, and also potentially charge into a spider if shooting didn't do enough to get rid of it. I scored at the end of my round 5, so I was more focused on clearing up any remaining threats that could stop me from getting onto those objectives at the end of my turn. My Phobos lads had both dropped down to Pincer the Chronomancer and positioned in such a way that if Graham wanted to shoot both characters with his Doomsday Arc, he wouldn't be able to get onto the objective without one of them, if not both, being able to reactive move out of line of sight. And fortunately, even with that position, my Phobos Lieutenant did survive and is able to jump back into the sky to help get some points in my round 5. And it's in that round 5 where I had my final opportunity. I draw Extend, Battle Lines, and Establish Locus. I can't do Extend anymore as I've left my home objective, so I redraw for Secured No Man's Land. I need 18 points to win here, which is doable if I get at least 10 on the primary and both of my secondary cards. I move the Phobos Lieutenant into Graham's deployment zone for Establish, and for Secure No Man's Land, I just need the center. Despite the Void Dragon leering over the center objective, I can out-OC him with Centurions. That does, however, rely on me getting Centurions moving quickly. I managed to roll enough to get the solo Centurion on there, but the other squad only manages to get 2, which is still enough. That's 3 Centurions, 6 OC. But with the last remaining of his command points, Graham overwatches with the Doomsday Arc. There isn't a way I can get at least 2 Centurions onto the objective without also being in range of this, so I just need to hope that he doesn't roll that many shots. Well, shit. 2 wounds get through, and I fail both saves. Flat 4 damage each, 2 dead Centurions. We're now tied on that objective, so I lose out on 5 primary and 3 victory points from Secure No Man's Land, meaning that I lose 74 to 80. I just needed to pass one of those saves, or not have Graham roll that many shots, but at the end of the day, holy, what a great game that was. Oh my god. Proper nail-biter all the way through to the very last moment. It had drama, suspense, even a little bit of comedy as the Wraith and Death Sense just slapped the shit out of each other for most of the game. Absolute cinema. When the second round pairings came up, I got flashbacks to my day 2 of the Winter ITT when I played Necrons straight into Drukhari. Game 2 was against David, who was a super nice guy. David and a few of his mates were also here on their first tournament. Wow, I get to play with all the new guys, get completely smashed so they can at least get the satisfaction of winning. Hey, I'm doing my part. Unlike last week's overwhelming murder-fueled nightmare, I got a little bit lucky with David not running Spectacular Spite, but instead having a Reaper's Wager list, still headed up by Lilith and Malice, but with a little less of that witch cult hyper-aggression. The Solitaire acts as the lone Harlequin offering just because, one, it's extremely good, and in case he wants to flip the wager, he has an option. But otherwise, this is a fairly standard list for Drukhari. Inventory split with Venoms, hyperfast witch cult bikes and boards, move, shoot, move, Scourges, and a single Kronos, because who doesn't love a single Kronos? They're great. I love them. Look at them. Oh, it's so cute. They're great. I love a Kronos. That's why I bought 3 of them and was going to magnetize them, but that was like 3 years ago and I haven't done it yet. I do want to highlight David's army because he has some absolutely stellar kit bashes. These are really cool. This Venom with the skin wrap and Talos bits look really cool. Deliciously Drukhari. The Kronos had this horrifying amalgam of limbs attached to it, which is just gnarly as hell. I love it. And a simple but extremely effective use of Ghostly Skulls amplifies this Archon's aura massively. Just goddamn, this is awesome. Unlike my last game against Drukhari, where I played very defensively, this time I went with a different tactic. The classic tactical move of, you know what? Fuck it. If I'm gonna die in melee, I might as well die somewhere useful. And I deployed aggressively. I wasn't going to let David take my expansion objective or the center without a fight. And it kind of worked. Not really, but a little bit. Hey, it was better than last time. We're playing Linchpin on the Search and Destroy deployment again. Each header was quite nice because the deployment zones and the terrain layout didn't change every single game. They kind of were in pairs. So games 1 and 2 were the same, games 3 and 4 were the same. Except for the table that David and I were on, because that was one of the few tables that someone didn't play around 1 on for some reason. So that was great fortune for us, wasn't it? I didn't put my Centurions into reserves this time. I kept them down here just in case David gets a bit too keen and tries to flank around. This would have been a much nicer position if it wasn't for this fucking square blocking a lot of vision, but it's good enough. David has his Hellions up in the sky to swoop down and eviscerate something later on. David gets the first turn and brings his Kronos onto the center objective for area denial, moves a bunch of stuff towards his expansion objective, and starts making a move up towards my expansion objective. I actually draw really nice turn 1 cards. Bring it down and storm hostile objective. The Kronos counts for bring it down, as it is a monster, which is very nice for me, and I can just blast that fucker off the map with Centurions. However, for storm hostile, the only one I can really get to is the center with my Blade Guard. I figured I need to get points early before I get killed, so if I don't push the Blade Guard forward, they aren't exactly going to get charged and might just have to sit there doing nothing. So I need to force David's hand a little bit. Sure, there are a lot of Dark Lancers around, but hitting me is more difficult thanks to my detachment roll, and I have a 4-up invuln, which seems to work for everyone else, so I hope it works for me. A lot of David's power is still in the melee, so he'll have to get into melee with me eventually. Otherwise, I can just charge them. I move my JPIs around to stage for future aggression, and then I send Shrike and his 10 Vanguard veterans directly into the middle of my expansion objective. Predictably, that brought Lilith and Malice out to play, especially when David draws Storm Hostile Objective and Secure No Man's Land. Shrike and the Vanguard veterans are torn apart exactly as I expected, but this is turn 2, and now David has a lot of his key units and most of his characters in lines of sight for my Centurions, as well as 2 squads of JPIs with charge mortals and decent output into squishy Dark Eldar. However, in the center, even with fights first, the damage output from Drukhari shooting and fighting is too much, and I'm left with but a single Judicia by the end of my round 2. My plan was kind of working though. Lilith, Malice, and the Archon, that only rolled his 2-up save once before failing, all died to the Centurion bombardment. Unfortunately, that doesn't exactly help me get established locus or a tempting target, which was this one, which became a parking lot for a biker bar. My primary, as it usually is, was quite lacking. By the time it got to my turn 3, I was left with 18 Centurions, Athan Shan, and nothing else. That is not exactly a winning combination, and honestly, it's a lot earlier in the game than normal for this problem to occur. And that problem is actions. Sure, I can kill stuff, but the game is won by points, not kills. This isn't deathmatch. This is a tactical game. So I'm told. I'm not very good at that. And moving 4 inches doesn't exactly get you around the board into positions to do actions or get onto objectives. I can get to board edges with Shan's free uppy downy, sure, but do I really want to teleport 3 Centurions into a position just to do an action? However, the killing part I was doing very, very well. Because of the lack of buffs from characters or Spectacle of Spite, David did not have a way to really get through my Centurions. 10 Hellions came down and charged into my Salt Centurions lurking in this building and killed 1. I then punch back and kill 9 of them. Then my Centurions could easily just fall back and shoot that final 1 going into the center objective, and then just start brawling whatever is left. A squad of Surges tried to pop out to get some shots on, but in Overwatch, I killed 4 of them with my Flamers. Wait, no, sorry, I'm wrong here. I've written that wrong. I killed 4 of them with my Flamer. Singular. Only 1 of my Assault Centurions was actually in range to overwatch David's Scourges when he brought them out. He wanted to be within 12 inches to get around my detachment rule, but not closer as he didn't want to be in range of multiple Centurions with Flamers. But apparently that really doesn't matter when you don't roll your saves very well, and I cooked 4 of them alive for some delicious spicy Scourge-style chicken wings. By the end of the game, I still had most of my Centurions left, and even Shard had come out to play in rounds 4 and 5 because I knew I scored at the end of my turn, and I had Centurions that could go back to my home objective. With teleported Centurions tearing through the squishy Drukhari, the only 3 survivors for David were 3 Reaver jet bikes that I just could not reach. I basically tabled him. But killing doesn't equal points, and what's the point of killing units when David doesn't need them anymore? He's already done all 5 of his turn. I managed to come back pretty well at the end after some brutal early game scoring with a massive 25-point turn 5, but that was not enough. And ultimately, it was a 61-69 defeat. But still another incredible game. I think I threw too much away early to try and stop myself getting overwhelmed. It did work, but having an extra squad of JPIs or 1 or 2 of my Phobos lads around would have really helped when I was trying to score stuff like cleanse or recover assets. Overwhelming Force was also one that I just drew too late, because by that point there wasn't exactly much left for me to overwhelm. Game 3 was against Ross, who was a super nice guy and also was here on his first 40k event. Ross had brought along his Dark Angels with, of course, the Lion, making this 3 for 3, going against some of the greatest hits of Porter's Bad at Stuff Nemesis. Ross mentioned to me that he wasn't much of a 40k player and was more into Horus Heresy and painting. And yeah, he was right about that painting part. Jesus, his army was absolutely beautiful. I seriously regret not taking more photos because it was immaculate. His Lionel Johnson was one of the best models, if not the best model I've ever witnessed in person on the tabletop. And I'm aware that talking about how good his army looked without having any pictures to show for it is probably pissing you off because it's completely useless. But if you're watching my videos for quality thought out content, you're in the wrong goddamn place. Ross, if you are out there, please share some pictures of your models. They are absolutely incredible. So yes, I've lost to two first timers, but they weren't new to 40k, just going to events, or at least I don't think they were that new to 40k based on how they played. Ross, respectfully, was not as experienced of a player. He knew the rules and everything like that, but he was definitely in the stage I was about a year ago of finding his footing and understanding how to play his army effectively. I mean, his list is decent. Deathwing Knights, the Lion, a Ballistus, and Lancer for firepower alongside some Hellblasters, a few scoring pieces. This is a good list. However, when you're trying to learn a game like 40k, going up against a list like mine can be extremely brutal because my list is weird and skews into an unfamiliar stat line. Toughness 7, 4 wounds, a 2-up save, and insane damage output on an extremely slow infantry isn't something a newer player will really understand how to deal with effectively until it's too late. This compounds with the fact that my list does extremely well and snowballs incredibly hard, if my opponent lets me. The lesson of this game is actually a lesson on how I win, as this game finally breaks my winless streak of 16 games in a row. So if this list can win, what is the problem with it? The problem is the second part of my previous statement. If the opponent lets me. If you give the Screaming Ravens space, they will tear you apart. If I have multiple options to drop down Centurions into sight lines and destroy a key target without retaliation, and that causes you to have to scramble to deal with it, leaving me with space to teleport away and do it again and again and again, I will annihilate you. But I cannot make those conditions myself. This army is not proactive. It has no real way of making that space, of getting that snowball rolling. This list relies on my opponent hesitating, which only works against less experienced players. More experienced players will take one look at my list and go, oh, okay, and just send big threats forward to hold the center. I can teleport and deal with one of them, then the other kills me and I lose a massive amount of my firepower for it. And I rely on that Centurion firepower trading well repeatedly, not just once. The rest of my army can't deal with those threats, and if they can't play safe or play for bigger moves later on, my potential drops off dramatically. Essentially, my list is the Shaka from League of Legends of army lists, the character that requires you to play differently to counter it lest you be destroyed. But if you do know how to counterplay it, it falls over and is useless. Insert the equivalent for your chosen game here. I just remember Shaka from my misspent youth as a League player. I've had some wins that I'm proud of and some close fought victories or wins where I actually used my brain and made a game-changing play, but a lot of my wins, I've come to realize, are against players much less experienced than me. Because the unfortunate truth is, the Screaming Ravens rely on my opponent being confused and exploiting that unfamiliarity. That isn't exactly a very nice thing to do, is it? It is, however, incredibly thematic. That is literally how I designed this chapter lore-wise. Befuddle the enemy with overwhelming cacophony and then violently tear them to pieces in the confusion before they even know what's happening. And that is what happened to Ross. Still, this was a fun game, and I also made sure to give Ross some advice, so at least he came away from the game with some extra knowledge, as my opponents have done for me. Whether that's good or useful knowledge, no idea, but I tried. We're playing Purge the Foe on the Crucible of Battle deployment. We both deploy pretty aggressively, but there's no real shooting angles early. And with me getting the first turn, I can move most of my army forward to stage and at least get something on some of the objectives of primary. Purge the Foe only requires one or more objectives, so I set my Combi Lieutenant onto the middle to see if I can draw Ross out, and I move my Strike Bomb down onto this objective, who are relatively safe from shooting due to low knob. If the Incursors come forward, I can also run away 6 inches with a reactive move. This is where Ross makes the crucial mistake, and it only takes one mistake like this for my list to get that snowball rolling. I don't want to claim to be an expert or anything, but I'll point out what mistakes were made. I also want to talk about what I think Ross could have done instead. But I'm not a Dark Angels player, so any Dark Angels experts out there who want to chime in and give advice in the comments, please do so, especially if you happen to be one of the best Dark Angels players in the world. Ross sends Azrael and his inner circle towards my Phobos Lieutenant. With advance and charge, the reactive move wasn't exactly matter if I used the command point for it, so Ross gets First Blood, which is 4 points for Purge the Foe and for Extend Battle Lines. That's a good start. However, the rest of his army doesn't play as aggressively. The Lion teleports forward and is flanked by his Deathwing Knights, but they stay deep into this ruin. The Hellblasters move up behind this ruin, and the Incursors also stage in this ruin. The Gladiator is a little bit mispositioned. It's not really able to move anywhere to get a good line of sight sight, and Ross is worried about teleporting Centurions one-shotting it, or getting a bit too close for a potential Strike Bomb Inferno Pistol charging lethal hit beatdown. A classic Sabip maneuver. I do retreat my Combat Lieutenant from the center as the Hellblasters get into range, just to ensure there are no good charge targets for the Deathwing Knights. On my turn 2, I can very easily drop down my Centurions to delete Azrael and his squad, while also securing positions in the center and bottom objectives. My Blade Guard are now right up in Ross's face, but with the top side now clear and JPIs with 10 OC holding it, if those Hellblasters want to go into this ruin, I can get a lot of angles onto them. And anything charging will be met with Fight's first Blade Guard. This all sounds very scary, but this is where Ross should have just gone, okay, and sent the Hellblasters forward along with the Lion and his Deathwing Knights. If he had put Azrael and the inner circle here instead of going for the kill, this game is completely different. I can't get angles on Azrael, and if I try to get my Centurions into positions for line of sight, the inner circle could easily get them and trap them in melee. With those trapped, it doesn't matter if I can even kill the Lion, because if the Lion is in the middle with all the Deathwing Knights and then -1 damage and 4 inverts, I can't deal with them before they just charge me. Shrike and the Vanguard Vets with Inferno Pistols wouldn't be able to chew through those Deathwing Knights. And as was shown later in the game, 6 Devastating Centurions firing everything into an Oath squad of Deathwing Knights kills 1.
The numbers don't lie!
Instead, the Lion and the Knights held back, worried to poke out until at least Ross's turn 3, at which point I'd already got my Assault Centurions into a Ballistas, as well as positioned to send JPIs onto his home tech house Intercessors. As only the Ballistas and his Hellblasters had moved forward, it also meant that I could drop down my Centurions to delete the Hellblasters, meaning I took out 2 big threats for basically nothing. The Incursors could take out that bottom objective, but without any other threats, Strike Squad just retreats slightly and then on the next turn wraps around behind them. And if he then sends Deathwing Knights over there, fine, I'm going to get you off your home objective, and you aren't getting this one at the top, so I will always hold more. The power of the Lion should not be understated, because he will murder Centurions with that AP4 damage for melee strike. Even if I use Armor Contempt, unless I make like 7 out of 8 5+ saves, they're all dead. Where were those dice this morning against Necrons, for God's sake? Fortunately, the Deathwing Knights did the rest of the job and picked up that squad right after to balancing that, because that was an insane roll. This is the kind of game I've had before, and it ends up just being a bit of a learning experience. We chatted about the game after, but nothing really helps you understand how something works better than actually seeing it. It took Ross actually seeing it to realize that his Deathwing Knights and the Lion are basically unkillable murder machines, and as soon as he saw that, he realized the error in his plan. Despite the fairly heavy 92-59 defeat, Ross was an excellent opponent. I had a really great time playing him. Day 2 begins with Game 4 against Jack, who is a super nice guy, and his Imperial Knights means I can take another army off my list of armies I've played against. Jack's list has 3 big knights and 4 small knights, with a small contingent of sisters in an immolator for a bit of objective scoring, as well as a few extra melters for good measure. However, look at Jack's Crusaders. Both have been equipped for maximum weight of fire. This makes sense in a Catan world, but against my list, this is a bit of a problem. Thermal cannons and melters are devastating against me, but the -1 and -2 AP from the main guns I can very easily mitigate by being far enough away in cover, plus armor contempt. This is a bit of an unfortunate pairing for Jack. Scorched Earth on the Crucible of Battle deployment. Jack gets the first turn, which on Scorched Earth is a pretty big disadvantage. Scorching objectives happens at the end of your opponent's next turn, except in Game 5, so going second is massively advantageous for trying to get those final points. Running to go first is pretty unfortunate for Jack here. Jack pushes forward aggressively with the Armigers and 2 Crusaders, leaving the Castellan at the back to make sure I didn't try anything cheeky. On my turn, I move forward to get area denial and stage a few things without getting too aggressive. Mostly advance moving my Centurions into better positions. On turn 2, Jack moves his Crusader onto this fucking square to get lines of sight onto my 3-man squad of Centurions, which are waiting for someone to pop their head out. This is where that choice of weaponry causes some real issues, as well as me not exposing anything which would have made a better target for Armor Contempt. This is the only real target, so my 3 Centurions are now saving on 2s, and after an entire Crusader fired at them, I lost 1 Centurion. On my turn 2, I drop down 6 Centurions, and the 8 of them take all but 2 wounds off that Crusader, even with Rotate Ion Shields active. Annoyingly for my list though, a knight with 2 wounds remaining is functionally identical to a knight with full health. However, if that Crusader so much as twitches, I will fire Overwatch, and with Oath of Moment still on there, I should be able to do enough to delete. So it's now kind of forced to stay where it is, even though it is firing into Centurions, which has already been shown not to work. On the other side of the board, a fun interaction occurs when Jack charges an Armiger into my Centurions, and I then choose to heroically intervene with the Blade Guard. Jack also wants to do a Tank Shock, but both Tank Shock and Heroic Intervention have the same trigger, which is after a unit ends a charge move. Which one goes off first? We figured it was up to the attacking player, but we did want to double check, so we asked Tiho, who confirmed it, that yes, they both trigger at the same time, so the active player does choose the order. This is very important, as it means he can let me pre-heroically intervene before tank shocking, which means that tank shock can target the incoming fight's first blade guard, and it kills 2 of them, which is a lot better than potentially only killing a maximum of 1 Centurion. Jack did ask if I wanted to take back the heroic intervention after we confirmed that they might get tank shocked, but honestly, I still think this is the right play. Next, we tried to get some damage through, and I could actually kill an armager like this, and Jack wouldn't attack them back because he would want to attack the Assault Centurions, otherwise a full squad of 6 Assault Centurions will definitely kill him. I mean, even after the armager had killed a couple of Centurions, they still did like 21 damage, but still, it was the right call. Later in the game, I managed to take out the other Crusader in a single volley from the devastated Centurions, after they'd already positioned to destroy an entire Battle Sister squad and their Immolator. This is what I mean about the snowball. I can get my Centurions to position to kill multiple big threats without much of a response. By the end of the game, all Jack had left was a Castellan and a single armager, which had at least successfully burnt the bottom objective. But as Shrike hadn't really done anything all game, and with the lack of ball control from Jack only having 2 models left, it was very easy for me to drop into Jack's deployment zone onto his home objective with Shrike and to my Phobos lieutenants and have one burn the objective and the other cleanse. As I did this in round 5, cleanse and the primary scoring complete at the end of the turn, but burning completes at the end of the battle. So I get to score 5 victory points for holding it and then 10 for burning it, as well as being allowed to have it as a target for cleanse, giving me a 29-point turn 5 when I needed 8. Jack made one very unfortunate error. He should have swapped the Castellan and the Crusader around. The Castellan is harder to kill, and the weaponry is far more effective against Centurions. Although, as we found out, it's not very effective against Combi Lieutenants, as the Volcano Lance shots failed to hit, and in fact, thanks to stealth and the Feel No Pains, my Combi Lieutenant almost managed to take the entire night. He didn't, but it was pretty close and very funny. Speaking of being very funny, Game 5 was against Joe.
You know, they say all men are created equal, but you look at me and you look at Joe, and you can see that statement is not true.
Was a super nice guy. You may know Joe from the Liam Dempsey channel and their streams, and if you don't, you should go and subscribe and watch them. And once you've done that, you should subscribe to me. Look, I'll give others a plug, alright? But I'm looking out for number 1 here, okay? You better like, comment, and subscribe right now. Joe was bringing Black Templars and the full cast of nasty melee powerhouses the Crusading Zealots have access to. Grimaldus, Helbrecht, and the Emperor's Champion lead big blocks of assault intercessors for max OC and bodyguard value. There's also some Sword Brethren and a couple of Gladiator Lancers for firing threats. Joe is using Gladius Task Force because, when in doubt, Gladius Task Force. Joe mentioned that he was a fan of Raven Guard, which is great because Raven Guard are the coolest, but not great because he knows exactly what to do against me. Oh, that's very nice, Paul. You got a bit of terror from early. That's great. I'll make a few little moves here and there so you can't shoot anything with Centurions. Oh, you're just gonna kind of hang out back there? Okay, fine. Helbrecht, Castellan, Sword Brethren in your deployment zone fighting Centurions. And here's more Sword Brethren taking your natural expansion for good measure. Huh. Well, I'm fucked. Somehow, in that madness, I did manage to get rid of all of that nastiness attacking me in my deployment zone. I had to do some wacky shit. I had to fall back with the 3-man squad of Centurions to open up the 6-man for shooting. That got rid of all the Sword Brethren, so I then had to charge Shan into just the Castellan, the devs into Helbrecht, otherwise Helbrecht would have probably fought on death or something and killed Shan. And then it took a couple of rounds for the dev sense to actually beat the shit out of Helbrecht with backhanded las cannons, but they did manage it eventually. However, the main story of this game was the center objective. And this is probably the most chaotic and insane sequence of events I've ever had the pleasure of taking part in. Joe had staged his 20 assault intercessors with various characters behind this central building. I had my Blade Guard mirrored with my assault Centurions moving up as well. For the first couple of rounds, the center was barren. I decided I need to light the fuse on this powder keg and moved my assault Centurions onto the center objective for area denial. Joe's turn 3. 10 assault intercessors to Grimaldus charge into Centurions, but before the Blade Guard heroically intervene, which puts them in range of the Emperor's Champion, and 10 more assault intercessors. Everything just smashed together all at once, fighting back and forth, but the Black Templars gained the upper hand. Grimaldus' squad might have been defeated, but Grimaldus himself was very much still standing, and the Emperor's Champion squad had barely been touched. The devastated Centurions drop down and fire everything at Grimaldus, taking out the remaining Cenobite servitors, but not actually taking out Grimaldus himself. And that was all because one of these little fucking goovers managed to tank 4 las cannons and 2 missiles with a combination of 4 pinpoints and 5 Feel No Pains. 4 las cannons, all saved. The missiles weren't actually saved, but Joe decided to inflict maximum psychic damage when, after failing the 4-up invuln, he made both 5-up Feel No Pains twice. It was only because I rolled 3 damage that I killed the last one, because Joe's final Feel No Pain roll was 5-5-2. He almost did it 3 times in a row. Shrike and 10 Vanguard veterans then come running in with Inferno pistols to blast away Grimaldus and blender the champion's assault intercessors, but not before the Emperor's Champion showed the true might of the Crusaders, and over the next couple of fight phases destroyed Shrike and his entire squad without remorse, alongside a Drusilla-led squad of Sword Brethren who came over to help before also being bombarded by Centurion firepower. The Emperor's Champion stood alone. until Ethan Shan swooped in from the shadows to rip out the champion's heart. But in a final act of defiance, skewered on Shan's claws, the Emperor's champion fights on death, ripping Shan's head clean off his shoulders, both falling onto the pile of blooded corpses that now constitutes the center of the battlefield. And at the very end, his single sword brethren climbs the mountain of gore to make a final claim by terraforming the center objective. 1,500 points of models died on the center objective. Over 50 models were slain on the bloodiest center of the battlefield I've ever witnessed. And that was all over 2 rounds, pretty much. Absolute fucking cinema. Oh, yeah, I lost the game. Joe did the thing where I lose because you just run at me and I have to fight from several fronts with Scary Melee, and I can't do that. But that's dime a dozen. You've seen that time and time again. Who fucking cares? This game was fucking awesome. And I'm glad I was able to help break your beachhead curse, Joe. Although it seems like it might have been passed on to me. Game 6. God, this is a long one. Right. Game 6 was against Pridders, who was a super nice guy and a long-time viewer of the channel. So it was nice to finally put a face to the name, and to round out this tournament and this final 18th Centurion game, it just wouldn't be right if I didn't have to play against Space Wolves again and cock it up again. I will say I'm glad I got to play against Pridders and have a chill time, because 6 games is a lot, especially after 2 previous weekends of full-on Warhammer. My brain was gone, and honestly I don't think I've properly recovered, because these videos basically make me replay the entire thing again. Pridders' Space Wolves, or Space Raptors based on this awesome Logan Grimdark kit bash, had the normal favourites, but also a big 20-man squad of Bloodclaws and an Armiger, which is cool. Listen, I'm gonna keep it real. I really didn't care what happens. I just wanted to get the chance to fire my 6-man blob of dev sense at the Bloodclaws. It's not every day you get the chance to fire 6d3 plus 24 strength 9 AP2 d3 damage shots at something, and I wasn't gonna let that opportunity pass. However, great news! In this game, I finally remembered to actually properly rapid ingress Shrike, and I used it to rip apart the infiltrators holding Pridders' home objective. Unfortunately, the mission is supply drop, so that didn't fucking matter. Supply drop is weird. It doesn't come up in a lot of events, and honestly, for good reason. It basically forces you to play for the center. If you go first and don't have the sticking power to hold it at the top of round 5, then you're gonna have problems. Also, if your natural expansion is the one to go first, that doesn't help. And also, objectives disappearing make the action missions way harder. Also, not scoring assassination for 3 fucking rounds because your opponent refuses to fail 4 invulns. Also, variance on the damage meant that I did kill those 20 blood claws very easily, but somehow 3 las cannons cannot kill a single angry wolf boy. But all of that doesn't really matter when you throw 300 points of Vanguard Veteran Strike power at a useless play because you thought it was cool. I'll be honest, I whiffed this game hard. But again, that isn't to say Pridders didn't play well. I just kept making mistakes. But honestly, it was late. I was having fun hanging around with my boy Pridders, and I didn't really care. Hey, I got to roll my utterly insane amount of dice at 20 blood claws, alright? What more could you ask for? But this does very much show the final reason that my list sucks. Me. I'm not a great player. I make mistakes, and this list might seem simple, but it requires real precision. One wrong move, and it's all over. There is no margin for error, no leeway for mistakes. That doesn't really mesh well with the fact that this list is made, because I just want to be a goofball and have fun. And to be fair, have fun I do. In this game, and every single one of my games from all the events I've been to in the past year. Look, maybe 10th edition isn't for you. Maybe you prefer Horus Heresy, or the old days, or maybe you think tournaments are for losers, or that people should just play chess or something. Or maybe you think that competitive 40k is ruining the game. And if you think that, then honestly, I don't care. It's your life. You do what you want. Like what you like. Have your opinions. I'm not going to change your mind, and I'm not really trying to. I'm not saying you're wrong. We just have different tastes, thoughts, and experiences. That's life. But this message goes out to all of those who are thinking about it, unsure about if a 40k tournament would be for them, those who want to play a bit more 40k, who watch these videos and think they look like a laugh, the kinds of people who have come up to me and told me that I was the inspiration for getting them into going to events. Anytime I meet someone who's going to their first event, I always ask how they're finding it, and they've all said they've had a great time. So if you are one of those people who are considering it, if you are on the fence, I highly recommend giving it a go. I took that leap a year ago. I took my stupid list to a tournament, even when I thought that a 2-day tournament would just be too much, or would be full of competitive players who are far too serious. But it wasn't, and I'm so glad that I took that step. I've made a ton of friends, met so many awesome people, played some amazing games, taken part in some incredible cinematic moments, and created memories I will never forget. My next event is in April at the South Coast Super Major, where I'll be taking 36 Centurions, an Ancient, and a Dream. After that, who knows? Maybe before 11th edition hits, I'll try one more tournament, except this time I'll actually try with a more useful list to determine if I'm truly bad at stuff, or has this merely been the training montage? And if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe, and as always, thank you for watching. Like and comment on this video, as that really helps with the YouTube algorithm stuff, I've heard. And that makes me money, and I like money. Speaking of money, if you want to support me further, you can become a member or patron like all of these fantastic people, or buy my merch. You can buy these objective markers. They are real, and they can hurt you. Depending on when you're watching the video, I'll either be in Japan, or I won't. I guess that kind of describes the state of everything, really.